we're there in Genesis chapter 29, and tonight I'm going to continue studying through the book of Genesis. We normally do it midweek Bible study, but due to illness wasn't able to, so we'll catch up now. Let's just jump straight into verse number 1. Genesis chapter number 29, verse number 1. It says, "Then Jacob went on his journey and came into the land of the people of the east." So Jacob, he continues on his journey. Remember, in the previous chapter, we saw we had the whole, the angels descending and descending, and remember he had the dream. He set up his thing for a pillar and all that sort of stuff. And so we had all that. He's continuing on his journey here. Look at verse number 2. It says, "And he looked, and behold, a well in the field, and lo, there were 3 flocks of sheep lying by it. For out of that well they watered the flocks, and a great stone was upon the well's mouth." So he comes across 3 flocks of sheep. They're waiting by a well, and there's a large stone on top of the well. So it's obviously it's to prevent the well from being accessed. It's like guarding it there, and you've got these flocks of sheep that are waiting. Verse number 3. "And thither were all the flocks gathered, and they rolled the stone from the well's mouth, and watered the sheep, and put the stone again upon the well's mouth in his place." So they basically gather here waiting for the stone to get rolled away so the sheep can be watered before returning the stone to the well's mouth. Now, throughout the Bible we see lots of examples of things that happen, actual accounts of things happen, but a lot of these accounts can picture stuff. The Bible tells us in Romans chapter 15 that whatsoever things are written aforetime were written for our learning, that we through patience and comfort of the Scriptures might have hope. And so you get, wonder what this pictures. Well, we think about sheep waiting to be watered. The Bible describes God's people as sheep. Okay? So this could picture God's people waiting to be watered. Okay? And so they're waiting to be watered. Obviously, what would they be watered? It would be, they'd be receiving from God's word. But there's a sense in which they have to wait. It's not something that happens instantly. And I mean, we can actually see that if you have a look at Proverbs chapter number 2. Think about the believer. You see, the believer goes to God's word to find the truth, but you don't necessarily find it all straight away. If you look there in Proverbs chapter 2, it says, "My son, if thou wilt receive my words and hide my commandments with thee, so thou incline thine ear unto wisdom and apply thine heart to understanding, yea, if thou criest after knowledge and liftest up thy voice for understanding, if thou seekest her as silver and searchest for her as for hid treasures, then shalt thou understand the fear of the Lord and find the knowledge of God." So notice it's not instant. It says in verse 6, "For the Lord giveth wisdom, out of his mouth cometh knowledge and understanding. He layeth up sound wisdom for the righteous. He is a buckler to them that walk uprightly." So we see it's not something that's instantaneous. Even for God's people, it takes us a while to get stuff. And I mean, you'll probably find that when you read through the Bible. When you hear sermons preached, do you find each time it's like, oh, that's a little bit more. I've found something more. But it takes effort. If you don't bother taking the time to read your Bible, and searching stuff, then you're not going to find stuff. But of course, this was sheep that were being watered here, which pictures the saved. In contrast to that, you have the unsaved. And the thing about the unsaved is the unsaved, they don't even understand the Bible at all. They don't understand the Bible. If you look in 1 Corinthians chapter number 2, 1 Corinthians chapter number 2 and verse 14, 1 Corinthians chapter 2 and verse 14, it says, "But the natural man," just talking about the unsaved man, "receiveth not the things of the Spirit of the Lord, for they are foolishness unto him, neither can he know them, because they are spiritually discerned." Excuse me. So the unsaved person, they don't receive the things of the Spirit of God. They're foolishness unto him. Neither can he know them, because they are spiritually discerned. So unsaved people, they don't understand the Bible. And we see examples where Jesus talked about this sort of stuff in his ministry. He often would talk to the scribes and the Pharisees. If you look in Matthew chapter 23, the religious leaders, Jesus had some pretty harsh things to say about them. And the thing is, they didn't understand the Bible. He describes them as blind leaders of the blind. If you're there in Matthew chapter 23, verse number 13, he says, "But woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites." This is a false religious leader. "For ye shut up the kingdom of heaven against men." So what are they doing? They're preventing people from what? From getting saved. "Ye shut up the kingdom of heaven against men. For ye neither go in yourselves," so you're not saved, "neither suffer ye them or allow them that are entering to go in." Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you devour widows' houses, and for a pretense make long prayer. Therefore ye shall receive the greater damnation. Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you compass sea and land to make one proselyte. And when he is made, you make him twofold more the child of hell than yourselves. Doesn't it sound as though it's hard for them to get someone saved? It does. It sounds hard for them to get someone saved. Why? Because when they actually get someone supposedly saved, one proselyte, he says you make them twofold more the child of hell than yourselves. They're not actually getting saved. Verse number 16, he says, Woe unto you, blind guides, which say, Whosoever shall swear by the temple, it is nothing, but whosoever shall swear by the gold of the temple, he is a debtor. Ye fools and blind. For whether is greater, the gold of the temple that sanctifieth the gold? And over he calls them again. He says they're fools. He says they're blind. He says in Matthew chapter 15 verse 14, he says, Let them alone. They be blind leaders of the blind. And if the blind lead the blind, both shall fall into the ditch. Now a great example, and this is just something my wife was listening to some sermons this afternoon. A great example of this is the senior pastor, he might not be anymore, might have stepped down now, retired, but he was the senior pastor, until very recently, of the biggest Baptist church in Dunedin. The biggest Baptist church in Dunedin. Do you know what this person said in a sermon? He said, I do not believe there is such a thing as faith without works. He said, it does not exist. It doesn't exist. There's no such thing as faith without works. Well, what does the Bible say? The Bible says in James chapter 2, James chapter 2 says, Even so faith, if it hath not works, is dead being alone. Now does that verse sound like it's describing faith without works? It does. Even so faith, if it hath not works, is dead being alone. What's alone? The faith is alone because there's no works with it. So clearly in this verse, James chapter 2, faith without works. Verse number 18, Yea, a man must say, Thou hast faith and I have works. Show me thy faith without thy works, I will show thee my faith by thy works. Verse number 20, But wilt thou know, vain man, that faith without works doesn't exist? No. Faith without works is dead. Have a look down at verse number 26. For as the body without the spirit is dead, so faith without works is dead also. Over and over the Bible describes faith without works. But he's saying, no, there's no such thing as faith without works. What about Romans chapter number 4? Romans chapter number 4. Romans chapter number 4. Romans chapter number 4, verse number 5 says, But to him that worketh not. Now what's worketh not mean? Does that mean work a lot? Does that mean work a little bit? Or does that mean not work at all? It says, worketh not. But to him that worketh not, but believeth. What's believeth another word for? Faith.
Trusting.
Believing, trusting, faith, yeah. To him that worketh not, but believeth. On him that justifieth the ungodly, his faith is counted for righteousness. So someone who doesn't work but has faith. So this senior pastor may say there's no such thing as faith without works, but he needs to read his Bible. Because his Bible clearly says there is such a thing as faith without works. Now the Bible says, does that profit? No, it doesn't profit to have faith without works, but it does exist. And in fact, when you continued on listening to the sermon, what else does he believe? He believes that Muslims can get to heaven without knowing Jesus. Do you know that's what he said? He said that a Muslim who doesn't know Jesus can get to heaven that way. He did say, oh, well, maybe they might have a vision and get to heaven that way, but I'm not talking about that. He said, a Muslim who doesn't know Jesus can get to heaven. How can they get to heaven? Well, it was based on the life they lived. It was based on living a good life, keeping God's commandments, doing what's right, feeding the poor, being kind to those in need. That's what he was saying, I mean, it's crazy. What he's describing, it's work salvation. And the sad thing is that in that church, there'll be a lot of people who don't believe that, and that they just sit there blindly. But anyone who's unsaved that's listening to that, is anyone there going to get saved? Definitely not. But I guarantee there'd be saved people there sitting thinking, it doesn't sound quite right. It doesn't sound quite right. Well, of course it's not right. It's because the guy is a false teacher. He's leading people, just like Jesus said. He's leading people the wrong way. You compass sea and land to make one proselyte. And when he's made, they make him, twofold more the child of hell as yourselves. So it's important that we look to the Bible to find out what the truth is. We need to look. And the Bible says that when someone's preaching, we should search the scriptures daily whether these things are so. The Apostle Paul, he commended the Bereans. He said the Bereans, they were more noble than those in Thessalonica, in that they searched the Scriptures daily whether those things were so. If it's a commendable thing, a noble thing, to look in the Bible to see if what the Apostle Paul is saying, how much more some Joe Bloggs Baptist pastor? Absolutely you should. Everything that I say, you should be checking it with the Scripture. Okay? That's pretty. Yeah, well, there's a lot of that going on. It is. It's people pleasing. It's telling people what they want to hear. And I'm probably going to preach on it at some stage. I'll find out some more stuff, exactly what gets. I don't think they even believe in the 6-day creation in Genesis. I don't think they do. Okay? Why? It's just nonsense. It's absolute nonsense. Let's get back. I don't want to get derailed. Let's get back into Genesis chapter number 29. Genesis chapter number 29. Excuse me. Genesis chapter number 29. Verse number 4. And Jacob said unto them, My brethren, whence be ye? And they said, Of Haran are we. So he greets them, he asks them where they're from. Verse number 5. And he said unto them, Know ye Laban the son of Nahor? And they said, We know him. And he said unto them, Is he well? And they said, He is well. And behold, Rachel, his daughter, cometh with the sheep. So he asked if they know Laban and how he's getting on. He says, Yeah, he's well. And they point out, here's Laban's daughter Rachel. She's coming and bringing sheep with her. Obviously, she's a shepherdess. She looks after the sheep. Look at verse number 7. And he said, speaking to them, Jacob says, Lo, it is yet high day, neither is it time that the cattle should be gathered together. Water ye the sheep, and go and feed them. So Jacob obviously knows a bit about looking after animals. Okay, he knows a bit, and so he's offering them advice. He's saying, hey, look, this is what you're supposed to be doing. Now, it can be a bit dangerous sometimes offering advice when people haven't invited you to do that, but Jacob's not bothered. He says, look, this is what you should be doing. He says, look, now's the time to be feeding them, not gathering them together for the night. And, he says, since you're here, water them and then go and feed them, because this isn't what you're supposed to be doing this time of day. Obviously at night that's what would happen, they'd all gather together. He says, but it's not night, it's high day. These should be out feeding. Okay, you're here, have a drink, and so, have a drink and then go and feed them. That's what you're supposed to be doing. It's like, do you not know how to do your own job? Well, what did they say? Verse number 8, and they said, we cannot, until all the flocks be gathered together, until they roll the stone from the well's mouth, then we water the sheep. So they say, we can't till we're all gathered and we roll away the stone. Maybe the stone is really big. Maybe that's why we've all got to gather together so we can all, get together and shift the stone. Have a look at verse number 9. And while he yet spake with them, Rachel came with her father's sheep, for she kept them. And it came to pass when Jacob saw Rachel, the daughter of Laban, his mother's brother, and the sheep of Laban, his mother's brother, that Jacob went near and rolled the stone from the well's mouth and watered the flock of Laban, his mother's brother. So Rachel arrives with her father's sheep. What does Jacob do? He rolls the stone away. It could be that this is some heroic feat. If they're all waiting for everyone to gather together to shift it, and he's like, hey, I'll just go and shift it. Maybe he's trying to impress Rachel. That's possibly what's going on there. Whatever the case, he does that. Not only that, he also waters the flock. So he shifts it, and then he waters the flock. It says he rolled the stone from the well's mouth and watered the flock of Laban, his mother's brother. So he's like a gentleman. Rachel is the shepherd. She's the one who's supposed to be looking after him. He does it for her. He plays the part of a gentleman. Now, a question that comes to my mind is, what was Rachel even doing looking after the sheep? Have you ever thought about that? What was Rachel doing out there looking after these sheep? I mean, does that sound like the sort of an occupation for a lady to be doing? Out in the fields, where a bunch of shepherds are, a bunch of roughnecks out there looking after sheep. I kind of wonder, well, in fact, I don't wonder, about Laban being a good father. I don't think Laban was a good father. I don't think it was. Why is he at home? Where are the sons? While Rachel, the youngest daughter, is out there looking after the sheep, he should really be looking after them himself or getting his sons to do it. In fact, didn't we see on Sunday morning a couple of weeks ago? Remember we looked at Titus chapter number 2, verse number 5. Titus chapter number 2, verse number 5. It talked about the instructions for the young woman. It says they may teach the young woman to be discreet, chaste, keepers at home, good, obedient to their own husbands, that the word of God be not blasphemed. Young women are supposed to be keepers at home. And so that's talking about obviously when someone's married, they're supposed to be a keeper at home. But what about when you're even younger, before you're married? Before you're married, you just wander off and do all these sorts of stuff. I don't think that's a good idea. Sending your daughter out to look after the sheep in a field would be like sending your daughter out to be a labourer. I'm going to send my young daughter out and work as a labourer on a building site with all the yobbos there, think of all the drinking that goes on after, when tools are dropped down, and it's like, is that the place where you should be sending a young lady? No. So what's Laban doing? And the fact is, a major cause of both fornication and adultery is people not staying in the roles that God has given them. God says these are the roles that you have, and when people step outside that, it leads to all sorts of stuff. I remember when I saw my a friend of mine who was a policeman, and he was actually in court a number of years ago, and a whole pile of other policemen came there to support him and stuff. And but there was lots of them were policewomen, and lots of them were policemen. They were both policemen and policewomen, because these guys would work together. And then often you'd be assigned a partner. You'd be out and you'd spend all day cruising around in a car with someone of the opposite sex. Is that really a good idea? Would you think, is that a good idea for you if you're a married wife, or if you're a married husband, to spend all your time with someone else that you're not married to, and yet that's what you spend all your time doing? No, not at all. That's a recipe for fornication. That's a recipe for adultery. And the thing is, that's what the world wants. The world teaches us to do certain things, and when we follow what the world teaches us to do, it's going to lead us down a bad path. Let's look back at Genesis 29, verse number 11. Verse number 11. It says, "And Jacob kissed Rachel and lifted up his voice and wept." So Jacob kisses Rachel. That was sort of like a greeting in the Middle East. It's not that it's doing some sort of passionate kiss. We'll see later on he does the same thing with Laban. But he says, and then he lifts up his voice and weeps. Well, remember, he came to find a wife of Laban's daughters. That's what he's coming for. He's coming looking for a wife. And he knows that it's supposed to be from Laban's daughter. He's looking for a wife. And it's like, hey, look, here she comes. And he sees her and obviously thinks, wow, that's the sort of wife I'm looking for. Okay, it's pretty safe to say he was thankful when he laid eyes on her. It reminded me of when I first met my wife. I met my wife. We were at a restaurant down at Portobello, 1908, and I remember. I think both of us were thinking whether or not we were going to go or not. It was a friend of ours, her birthday party, and she invited both of us. We went down there for dinner, and. I was sitting down, I arrived late, I think it was. Yeah, I did, I arrived late. And I was down one end of the table, surprise, surprise. And a friend of mine, John, was there. And up at the other end of the table, sitting near John, was this girl that I'd never seen before. I thought, I wonder who that is. And so, me being quite clever, I thought to myself, various people moved around talking to people at various stages. So I went down, there was an empty seat beside John, so I went down and sat beside John to say, "G'day, how's it going, John?" But really, I was hoping to meet the girl who was sitting on the other side of John. And lo and behold, that was Maureen. That's where I met her. And it was funny, I remember that she actually had a key ring. And the key ring was sitting on the table. And the key ring she had in those days was a wee Bible. I think it was red, a little wee red Bible with a cross or something on it. And so I saw that. And I hadn't been a Christian for that long. But it was like, oh, you're a Christian. Oh, and so we sort of got talking, and that was sort of like but it was, I do remember that. I remember, and I remember meeting her, and in fact, I don't remember this, but my family tells me that I went home that night, because I was flatting somewhere else, but driving home, I ended up driving past my parents' house, and so I went past and called in to see them, called in to see my brother, who was still living at home at that stage, and I think, according to them, I said to them, "I've met the woman I'm going to marry." Lo and behold, sure enough, it happened. So, here Jacob, he's just met the woman that he's going to marry. It seems to me it's like as it was love at first sight. Because notice he's here. He lifted up his voice and wept. Okay, he lifted up his voice and wept. I think that Jacob was, when he saw Rachel, he thought, "Hey, I love this woman." Okay, I actually remember I didn't weep the first time I met my wife, but I do remember when we got married. and when she was coming down the aisle, and she never told me this is what she was going to do. I won't tell you what the name of the song was. It was some sort of secular thing or whatever. And but I remember coming down the aisle, and she started singing to me as she came up the aisle, and it made me weep. It made me weep. She was coming up. It wasn't because the singing was bad. I'm sure it was very good singing, but I was just honestly, it did. It made me weep. And the thing is, there's actually nothing that some people say, oh, well, that's you're just a big girl. Well, look, Jacob's weeping here. You know, here's a Bible verse for you. Jesus wept. You've heard that? Jesus wept, Jacob wept. It's okay to weep, okay? I'm not saying you should weep in blood all the time, but you don't have to be some hard man and never show any emotion. You know, that's not what the Bible teaches at all. Verse number 12. Excuse me. Verse number 12. It says, and Jacob told Rachel that he was her father's brother, and that he was Rebekah's son, and she ran and told her father. So he tells Rachel who he is, she runs, tells her father. But it kind of sounds like she's excited too. She didn't walk and tell her father, she ran and told her father. Verse number 13. And it came to pass when Laban, excuse me, it came to pass when Laban heard the tidings of Jacob, his sister's son, that he ran to meet him, and embraced him, and kissed him, and brought, you see it goes both ways, and brought him to his house, and he told Laban all these things. And Laban said to him, surely thou art my bone and my flesh. And he abode with him the space of a month. So Laban is pleased to meet Jacob. You know, he gives him I think the New Testament calls it a holy kiss. It talks about that, for example, in 1 Thessalonians chapter number 5. It says, greet the brethren with a kiss of charity, or a holy kiss it is in that one. Another place it says a kiss of charity. Okay? And the point being that this is not some sort of sexual kiss. It's just a greeting. Now, in the society we live in Western society, that's not something we do. There are places in the world where they still do that. Maybe if you're in Italy or something, I think men kiss each other on the cheek. You know, it's not the way we operate here. But there's nothing sexual about it. It's just purely it's a greeting that they had, and that's what they had in that culture at this time. We'll say any abode with them the space of a month. Verse number 15. And Laban said unto Jacob, because thou art my brother, shouldest thou therefore serve me for naught? Tell me, what shall thy wages be? So Jacob stayed with him for a month, but he has been doing something. Because Laban says, look, shouldest thou serve me for naught? He's stayed for a month, but he hasn't just been sitting around the house. He's obviously been working. I'd say he's probably been doing the job that Rachel used to be doing. He's been out looking after the sheep. He's been working for Laban. Jacob's not a freeloader. You know, he's been working for Laban, and eventually Laban decides it's time to pay him. Now, in time past, people actually have got jobs this way by working for someone for free. Now, I don't think that in today's society, I don't think that's really an option anymore. There's various, because of like liability, you know, there's legal issues. Sadly, it's not really an option anymore. It used to be a time where you could just go and work for someone for free, and you do a good job, and say, oh, okay, I'll hire you. But now, because of all these rules and regulations, I don't think it's even really feasible to do that these days anymore. Verse number 16. And Laban had 2 daughters. The name of the elder was Leah, and the name of the younger was Rachel. Leah was tender-eyed, but Rachel was beautiful and well-favoured. And Jacob loved Rachel and said, I will serve thee 7 years for Rachel, thy younger daughter. So Laban's got 2 daughters. One's beautiful, one's maybe not so much, you know. Physical appearance, it is a factor when we're choosing a spouse. Okay, it is. You're not supposed to choose someone that you're repulsed by or don't find attractive. But it's obviously not the most important thing. I mean, have a look at Proverbs chapter number 31. Proverbs chapter number 31, very familiar chapter of the Bible, the Proverbs 31 woman, we're very familiar with that. Proverbs chapter 31, verse number 30, says, favour is deceitful, and beauty is vain, but a woman that feareth the Lord, she shall be praised. She shall be praised. Have a look at Proverbs chapter number 11, verse number 22. Proverbs chapter number 11, verse number 22. See, some people are just attracted by what they see. And I think that's the most important thing. Well, Proverbs 11 verse 22 says, as a jewel of gold in a swine's snout, so is a fair woman which is without discretion. So that's someone who may look attractive, but they lack discretion. You know, they're obviously not like the one that's talked about in Titus chapter 2. They're not discreet, chaste. They're maybe not going to be a keeper at home. Well, guess what? That's like a jewel of gold in a swine's snout. If you take a pig and give it like a nice gold jewel nose ring, is that going to make that pig suddenly attractive? It's not. Okay? Well, guess what? A woman who's physically attractive But on the inside, she's not a godly woman. You know, it's just like you're going to be as happy as you would be if you were married to a pig. It's not it's not going to be a good thing. Now, Jacob, obviously, he puts a high value on Rachel. Because if you look back in verse number 18, what did he say? It said, I will serve thee 7 years for Rachel, thy younger daughter. He says, I'm going to serve you for 7 years. So obviously he puts a high value on Rachel. Laban thinks, okay, yeah, this sounds like a good idea. This sounds fine to me. Verse number 19. And Laban said, it is better that I give her to thee than that I should give her to another man. Abide with me. So Laban seemingly, should I say, he seemingly agrees to the deal. You see, it says in Proverbs 14:15, the simple believeth every word, but the prudent man looketh well to his going. Okay, Laban says, yeah, it's great, but Jacob should have been a bit more careful. Verse number 20. And Jacob served 7 years for Rachel, and they seemed unto him but a few days for the love he had to her. Now, it seemed as though, even though working for 7 years, that sounds like a long time, doesn't it? If you've worked in a job for 7 years, that's a long time. But it says that just actually seemed to him like they were just a few days. And this sort of shows us that when you're focused on something, when you're looking forward to something, it can make what you have to go through seem insignificant. You know, I mean, the story's told about the 3 men that were busy building something, and someone came up to them and said, you know, what are you doing? And one of them said, I'm laying bricks. Pretty obvious that's what he's doing. He was laying bricks. The other one said, I'm making a wall. So one was just, well, I'm just laying bricks. The other was thinking a bit beyond that. I'm making a wall. Maybe he might have been the foreman or something like that. But another one said, I'm building a cathedral. Now, I'm not going to speak for the merits or otherwise of cathedrals, but the point about it was, you can see the different levels of vision. One could only see what was in front of his face. One could see a little bit beyond that, but another one could see the future. He could see where he was going. Which one do you think would have been a better worker? Which one would you think, you know, the person who's got the long-term vision, that's the person who's going to actually, you know, make something. And having long-term vision, that's something that the Bible talks about. The Bible says, without a vision, the people perish. Hebrews chapter number 12 describes how Jesus was forward-looking. Hebrews chapter number 12 and verse number 1. Hebrews chapter number 12 and verse number 1. Hebrews 12:1 says, wherefore, seeing we also are compassed about with so great a cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight and the sin which does so easily beset us, and let us run with patience the race that is set before us, looking unto Jesus. So who does it say? Where should we look? Look unto Jesus. Looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith, who, for the joy that was set before him, endured the cross, despising the shame, and is set down at the right hand of the throne of God. So Jesus, he endured the cross. Why? For the joy that was set before him. He was looking forward to something. He was looking for the salvation that he was bringing for us. Turn back to Genesis 29. Genesis 29, verse number 21. It says, and Jacob said unto Laban, give me my wife, for my days are fulfilled, that I may go in unto her. So he works for 7 years. You know, he completes his 7 years' work, and he says, look, it's time to hand over my wife. Verse number 22. And Laban gathered together all the men of the place and made a feast. And it came to pass in the evening that he took Leah his daughter and brought her to him. And he went in unto her. And Laban gave unto his daughter Leah Zilpah his maid for an handmaid. So Laban, what does he do? He deceives Jacob by giving him Leah instead of Rachel. You know, I don't know if you've ever wondered about this. I've wondered before. How could Jacob get deceived by this? Have you ever wondered that and thought, how could he get deceived by this? I mean, you know, maybe when you get married, she could have a veil on. You know, I mean, maybe it was in the evening, so it was sort of dark. But I mean, it still seems a bit unusual, don't you think? I think it does. I think it seems a little bit strange. And to be honest, it could well be that maybe God allowed this to happen. Maybe that's why Jacob got deceived, because God allowed him to get deceived. Because remember, it says in Galatians 6:7, be not deceived, God is not mocked. For whatsoever man soweth, that shall he also reap. Well, what was Jacob? He was a deceiver. Haven't we read in previous chapters the deception that he did? he deceived, and then lo and behold, he gets deceived. Okay? And so that may well be the case. That may be why. Because, I mean, do you think if God had wanted to not let him get deceived, he could have allowed something to happen so he realised? I think so. It's just like before, when God could have allowed... Remember when Jacob was doing the deceiving, when he was deceiving Isaac, and Esau was out. Don't you think God could have allowed Esau to catch the animal really quickly and get there quickly while Jacob was still there? He could have, but he didn't. Why not? Because, well, it was, Esau ended up losing the blessing. Why? Well, the Bible says he was a fornicator. He was a profane person. So God wasn't going to help out. But likewise here, God could have helped Jacob so he didn't get deceived, but for whatever reason, God allowed it to happen. Verse number 26. Verse number... did I read the right one? Yes, I did. Sorry. Verse number 25. I didn't read far enough. Verse 25. And it came to pass that in the morning, behold, it was Leah. And he said to Laban, what is this that thou hast done unto me? Did not I serve with thee for Rachel? Wherefore then hast thou beguiled me? So it's like he found out in the morning, hey, it's the wrong sister. I married the wrong one. Why have you beguiled me? Why have you deceived me? And it may well be that it's, hey, God allowed this to happen. Now, why did Laban do it? I'm kind of guessing, he talked before about in verse 17, Leah was tender-eyed, Rachel was beautiful and well-favoured, and maybe he was thinking, I'm never going to get Leah married off, so we'll just whip her in there and get her married off. I'm not going to have any trouble. Rachel, she's got plenty of people knocking on the door saying, hey, can I marry Rachel? But Leah, maybe not so. That could well be the reason. But having said that, he comes up with an excuse. He says in verse number 26, Laban said, it must not be so done in our country to give the younger before the firstborn. So he's got a reason for it. It might be true, it might not, I don't know. But he does have an excuse. And the thing is, it's actually a human tendency to make excuses for our sin. When we do things that are wrong, we've always got a reason. We've always got an excuse. It's easy to find an excuse, especially for what we did wrong. Now, when other people do things wrong, hey, we don't sort of give them so much slack, do we? But the fact is that, we can easily come up with excuses for why we had to do what we had to do. One of my favourite Proverbs 20 verse 4 says, the sluggard will not plough by reason of the cold, therefore shall he beg and harvest and have nothing. Why won't he plough? Because it's cold. Well, don't other people plough when it's cold? Yeah, they do. So that's not the real reason. The sluggard will not plough by reason of the cold because he's a sluggard. That's the real reason. The reason he doesn't plough is because he's a sluggard. Verse number 27. He says, fulfill her week, and we will give thee this also for the service which thou shalt serve with me yet 7 other years. So Laban says, fulfill her week. He's basically saying, don't spoil the rest of the marriage. Continue going through, and do what's necessary. He says, and I'll give you Rachel if you serve me for another 7 years. So Laban's obviously probably a greedy person. He's thinking, well, I've got some good labour out of him so far. I'll get him to keep working. Jacob's a good worker. So he says, look, work for another 7 years. I'll give you Rachel, and then you because it's not that he has to work for 7 more years and then he'll get Rachel. He actually just says, look, you fulfill Leah's week and then you can marry Rachel, but in order, as payment for that, you have to keep working for another 7 years. And this is what we see. Verse number 28 here, Jacob agrees to the deal. It says, and Jacob did so, and fulfilled her week, that's Leah, and he gave him Rachel his daughter to wife also. And Laban gave to Rachel his daughter Bilhah his handmaid to be her maid. So Jacob agrees to the deal. Laban also gives Rachel a handmaid. He did the same thing with Leah. He gave her a handmaid as well. Verse number 30. And he went in also unto Rachel, and he loved also Rachel more than Leah, and served with him yet 7 other years. Okay, so he's worked 7 years, thinking he was going to get Rachel. He got Leah, and then he then gets Rachel again. So he's now got... the thing is, Jacob has now got 2 wives. That's the key thing we can understand in the story. He's now got 2... He was only supposed to have 1, and he's got 2 wives. One of whom he loves more than the other. Why? He loved Rachel. He didn't love Leah. It was Rachel that he loved. And so what do you call someone who's got multiple wives? Jacob's called a a bigamist, yeah, or a polygamist, you could say, yeah. He's got multiple wives. Now, just so we're clear about this, the Bible condemns having multiple wives. Nowhere does the Bible say, hey, it's fine to have multiple wives. Ephesians chapter 5 verse 31, for example, says, "For this cause shall a man leave his father and mother, and shall be joined unto his wife, and they two shall be one flesh." Notice that. A man shall leave his father and mother, and shall be joined unto his wife. It doesn't say wives, it says wife. And they two shall be one flesh. Jesus said the same thing multiple times. Mark chapter 10, for example, he describes, people come talking to him about divorce. He says, look, he takes it back to Adam and Eve. And he says, at the beginning, he says, they twain shall be one flesh. Turn if you would to Deuteronomy chapter number 17. Deuteronomy chapter number 17. Deuteronomy chapter number 17 and verse 14. This is the description of the instructions for the king of Israel. Deuteronomy chapter number 17, verse number 14. It says, "When thou art come unto the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee, and shalt possess it, and shalt dwell therein, and shalt say, I will set a king over me, like as all the nations that are about me. Thou shalt in any wise set him king over thee, whom the Lord thy God shall choose. One from among thy brethren shalt thou set king over thee. Thou mayest not set a stranger over thee, which is not thy brother." Verse 16. "But he shall not multiply horses to himself, nor cause the people to return to Egypt, to the end that he should multiply horses. Forasmuch as the Lord hath said unto you, ye shall henceforth return no more that way." Verse 17. "Neither shall he multiply wives to himself, that his heart turn not away, neither shall he greatly multiply to himself silver and gold." Okay, so here we see clearly this is instructions of the king of Israel saying, don't multiply wives. Now, if you think, if the king is not allowed to multiply wives, do you think just Joe Bloggs is allowed to multiply wives? Obviously not. Now, what about the kings of Israel? Did they multiply wives? Yes, they did. But just because they did it, that doesn't mean that it's right. The Bible says clearly it's wrong. Now, you might think, do you really need to preach against polygamy? Is it necessary? Well, it is in the Bible. And not only that, the fact is it's actually coming here soon. Polygamy is coming to New Zealand soon. I mean, if same-sex marriage is legal, then what reason is there for saying that it's wrong to marry multiple people? If it's okay for a man to marry a man, if it's okay for a woman to marry a woman, why shouldn't a man marry multiple women? What's wrong with it? If everyone agrees to it, if they're all happy, okay, I mean, love is love, isn't it? Isn't that what they say? And the fact is, I mean, many people actually are coming to New Zealand every year who believe it's perfectly fine for people to have multiple wives. They're called Muslims. And their holy book, the Quran, tells them that Muslim men can marry up to 4 women at a time. Now, I don't want to go off on a big tangent here because I've been reading quite a bit about Islam and stuff lately, and, it's pretty bizarre, According to Quran, Muslim men are allowed to have up to 4 wives at a time. Muhammad, however, he didn't have 4 wives. He had, I think in total he had about 13. It depends, they weren't necessarily all at the same time. A couple of them, it's argued they were just concubines as opposed to wives. But it's generally accepted he had at least 9 wives simultaneously. 9 wives at the same time. The youngest of whom, Aisha, I think she was about 6 or 7 when they got married. I think she was about 9 when he consummated the marriage. He was in his 50s at the time. So not only is it polygamy, I think we'd describe that as paedophilia, that you'd be imprisoned for that. You'd be locked up for that in New Zealand. But he says, look, this is it. And it's such a bizarre thing. When you read the Quran, it's such a silly book because it's written clearly. It's just Muhammad saying stuff to let him get away with whatever he wanted. I mean, there's one part that talks about how people would come over and to their place to eat, and it was annoying him that they were coming over to eat and staying too long, coming early and staying late. They were wearing his hospitality thin. Lo and behold, he gets a revelation from Allah. God tells him, guess what? When you go to the Prophet, don't come early and don't stay and take up his time. That's what Allah supposedly said. It was obviously Muhammad was saying that. That's all it was. And if you couldn't see that, you must have rocks or brains or something. But anyway, Polygamy, it might not be something that's common in New Zealand yet. But we do actually have a type of polygamy. It's kind of a different one. We have it spaced out. Instead of having multiple partners at the same time, we just have multiple partners one after the other. One after the other. They marry this person, then they marry that person. Or maybe they just don't get married at all. They just sleep with this person for a while, then they swap partners for this one, then they swap partners for that one. It's the same sort of stuff, you know. It's the same sort of stuff. But anyway, let's not get distracted. Turn back to Genesis chapter 29. We'll finish up quickly before my voice gives out. Genesis chapter 29, verse number 31. It says, "And when the Lord saw that Leah was hated, he opened her womb, but Rachel was barren." So here we see Leah was hated in comparison to Rachel. Now, hated in this context here can mean love less. It can mean love less. I mean, we saw in verse number 30, it says, "And he loved also Rachel more than Leah." So he loved Rachel more than Leah. That does suggest that he did love Leah to a degree. Obviously, she became his wife. You know, she bore children for him, etc. But it's pretty clear that it was Rachel that he loved more. But then in verse 31, it says that Leah was hated. So there's a sense in which hate can refer to someone being loved less. Okay, and I think that would probably fit when Jesus talked about, it says about someone being his disciple. We talked about this morning. It says, "If they come to me and hate not father and mother," he says, "you can't be my disciple." Would you think he was saying you literally have to physically hate your parents? Or was he saying, really, you need the love you have for your parents should be small in comparison to the love you have for me, so that in comparison it's like hate, that's all it is. You love them a lot less than me. That's what he was saying. He wasn't saying you have to actually hate them. But having said that though, that doesn't mean that every time the Bible says hate, it means love less. It doesn't. When it talks about God hating people. I mean, didn't we sing that this morning? I think we sang Psalm 11. We did. Have a look at Psalm number 11. Psalm number 11 and verse number 5, I think it is. Psalm number 11 and verse number 5, describing God hating. Psalm number 11 and verse number 5, it says, "The Lord trieth the righteous, but the wicked, and him that loveth violence his soul hateth." It says God hates people. Now some people say, oh, but maybe that's just love less. You know, because if hate can mean love less, maybe that's what it means. Well, it doesn't sound like it, because read the next verse. "Upon the wicked he shall rain snares, fire and brimstone, and in horrible tempest. This shall be the portion of their cup." If that's loving less, it sounds like hate to me. It does. It sounds like hate to me. You know, it says in Hosea 9:15, it says, "All their wickedness is in Gilgal, for there I hated them." And not only that, then says, "For the wickedness of their doings I will drive them out of mine house. I will love them no more. All their princes are revolted." So look, hate can mean love less, but hate can also mean hate. We need to understand that, okay? But in this case, he's saying, look, when God saw that Leah was hated, when he saw that she was loved less, he opened her womb, but Rachel was barren. It kind of reminds us, when things are going well, you don't really want to, what's the word for it? The Bible cautions us. It says, for example, the book of Proverbs says, "Rejoice not when thine enemy falleth, lest the Lord see it, and it displease him, and he turn away his wrath from him." Okay, so it's important we understand, we shouldn't, when bad things happen to people, we need to be careful not to rejoice about that. Because God might see it and say, hey, look, I'm going to turn away my wrath from them because of what's going on. God can right the balance. He can right the scales. We need to do what's right and think what's right and desire what's right. Even if it's not what we might naturally feel in ourselves. Is it natural to love your enemies? It's not. But that's what we're called to do. Notice also it says here that he opened Leah's womb. God opened Leah's womb. That's a reminder that it's not our job to open the womb. You know, in an effort to open the womb, many people they end up killing innocent babies. A great example of this is IVF, in vitro fertilization. What is it? It's what they do. They create all these babies. They create all these babies, and many of them, are deformed. Many of them are thrown out and discarded. Some they're put in the freezer and are never used. Okay, And these bad things happen. Why? Because people are trying to open the womb. They're trying to open the womb when God says He's the one who opens the womb. Verse number 32. And Leah conceived and bare a son, and she called his name Reuben. For she said, Surely the Lord hath looked upon my affliction. Now therefore my husband will love me. And she conceived again and bare a son, and said, Because the Lord hath heard that I was hated, He hath therefore given me this son also. And she called his name Simeon. And she conceived again and bare a son, and said, Now this time will my husband be joined unto me, because I have borne him 3 sons. Therefore was his name called Levi. And she conceived again and bare a son, and said, Now will I praise the Lord. Therefore she called his name Judah, and left bearing. So Leah, she bears Reuben and Simeon and Levi and Judah, and she hoped that Jacob would love her. She was doing all these things in the hope that Jacob would love her. And I think we find out, later on, I think he actually ends up being buried with Leah. You know, she's buried in the same tomb as Abraham and Sarah and Isaac and Rebecca. And so I'm sure something does happen. But having said that, we're going to see in the next chapter that Leah's born these children. Jacob ends up having children by more women. He ends up having more wives. These concubines he takes the handmaids, if you like, he takes them to be his wife. And we see the result. We see bad things happening in Jacob's life. This whole concept of what do we see at the start of the chapter? We saw reaping what you sow. Jacob, the deceiver, he ends up getting deceived. He ends up in what really can only be described as, it's really what you could describe as a bad marriage. He's with multiple women, even in this chapter, and the next chapter it's going to be even more. Well, have a look at Proverbs chapter number 21, verse number 9. Proverbs chapter number 21. Proverbs chapter 21 and verse number 9. Proverbs chapter number 21, verse number 9. It says, It is better to dwell on the corner of the housetop than with a brawling woman in a wide house. You're saying, look, it's better to dwell in the corner of a housetop than with a brawling woman, a fighting woman in a wide house. Do you think if you've got multiple wives, you're going to have brawling women? I think so. Especially if you've got a couple of sisters, there's going to be competition there. And then you've got the handmaids involved. I don't think Jacob's marriage was a happy thing. Have a look at Proverbs chapter number 25, verse number 24. Proverbs chapter 25 and verse number 24. It said, It's better to dwell in the corner of the housetop than with a brawling woman in a wide house. What was that? Didn't we just read that before? The proverb is there twice. It's there twice. Who wrote the book of Proverbs? Solomon. He had multiple wives, didn't he? He had lots of wives. Well, I think he would have understood that, it's not a good thing when we go away from God's rules. Please understand, don't think that I'm against marriage. I'm not saying, hey, look, being around a brawling wife is a bad thing. Look, I love my wife. I love being married. But if we don't follow God's rules for marriage, we're headed for trouble. And one of God's rules is just one wife. Another one of his rules is a man marry a man and a woman marry a woman. God's rules, he says, what God desires, it's like you stay at home until you get married. Until it's time to get married. Think about that verse that we read. For this cause shall a man leave father and mother and cleave unto his wife, and they twain shall be one flesh. So what does it say? A man leaves his father and mother. So where is the man before he gets married? With his father and mother. Where do you think his wife should be? With her father and mother. That's what God has designed. They're supposed to be, children are supposed to be with their parents, and then they leave their parents when they get married. That's why when you have a wedding ceremony, traditionally what happens? The father brings the bride, he walks her down the aisle and he gives her away. Why? Because she's supposed to be there. Now the world we live in today, that's not the world we live in, is it? People go out and they leave their father and mother and they go flatting and they dwell here, they go to different cities. Do you think I would want my daughters to go off to a different city, to study at some university somewhere? Would that be a good thing? It'd be like sending your daughter out to be with all the shepherds out in the field, sending them down to the building site. That's not the thing. We shouldn't be sending our daughters out into the workforce. It's a lot safer to provide for them. Isn't that what the Bible says? If any provide not for his own, especially those of his own house, he hath denied the faith and is worse than an infidel. So we can learn, the Bible says, whatsoever things are written aforetime are written for our learning. We can learn from the good examples in the Scriptures, but we can also learn from the bad examples in the Scriptures and think, hey, we don't want to go down this path. We don't want to make the mistakes that they made. But let's close in prayer. Gracious Lord, we thank you for your word. We thank you for the examples in your word. Help us to follow the good examples. Help us to stay clear, to be warned by the bad examples. Help us to remember, Lord, that whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. That we should be sowing good things in our lives. We should be sowing good things in the lives of others so that we will reap a good harvest. Lord, we thank you that you gave your life that each one of us may have eternal life. Simply by faith in you. Not by faith and works, as some would teach, but simply by faith. Lord, we thank you and praise you and love you. In Jesus' precious name, amen.